Now, the views I'm about to express are not shared by my panelists necessarily.
Ever. Ever.
The television station, anyone in the booth, or even Comcast. These are my opinions. They are correct, but they are mine. With the introduction of 3rd edition, and I think when was it? This is 4th edition. I said 3rd edition. With the introduction of 3rd edition,
You screwed up. Oh.
With the introduction of 3rd edition in, what is it, 2002?
Yes.
Under the guidance of Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons & Dragons had its best sales in its history. It was a real juggernaut. It had leaped back to being on top after getting its butt kicked for about 8 years by White Wolf. But as these things go, things tend to sort of run their course. And after 2 wars, 2 recessions, this is true. It took its toll on luxury industries.
Oh,
like
certainly.
this. I mean, you would think as an indulgence, this would be like recession-proof, because it makes people feel good. But these books are expensive, and they found themselves in a situation where sales were flagging, and the powers that be at Wizards of the Coast, rather than put the property to bed for a while, decided to take a risk. Now, I commend them for taking a risk. Change is good. You need change. Without change, something sleeps within us.
End of topic.
Well, it worked out. Everybody got
But a
crazy for it
seed
again and bought that
had
book.
been planted. The seed of change, this idea that we have to make something new. And when they got the idea to make it new, they wanted to make it really new. And they fed a lot of ideas into the soil around that seed. And what that soil became was a fetid swamp of bad ideas. and all of the play testing fell upon deaf ears. And what it grew into was this. D&D 4th edition, which isn't just bad. It isn't just inferior. It's an abomination. A thing that should not be. Worthy of abhorrence and scorn. They reconfigured the entire game to play out more like an MMO in a thinly veiled attempt to appeal to players of World of Warcraft. Now, that was a good idea from a marketing standpoint, but if you've already got World of Warcraft, why would you switch to D&D? All
No monthly costs.
of the character classes, though there are many of them, are only superficially different and can be reduced to 3 types of characters.
Oh, I might actually
Damage
like that then.
doers, damage takers, and the heal bot. And that's it.
Hey, don't make fun of heal
That's
bot.
all it does. It's not even as interesting as World of Warcraft. They got rid of wizards' spells, priest spells. They were gone. Everybody had the same amount of powers. They increased the difficulty of playing a fighter and decreased the fun and diversity of playing a spellcaster. Everything about these books, and they've got 3-4 players' handbooks of races and classes, and it's all homogenous. There are no differences. There's no reason to buy more than one book. And they got rid of racial penalties for the different race types, giving everyone only bonuses, and what can I only assume is a 90s era style Rogerian pandering to all these kids that were brought up during the self-esteem era. These Generation Y kids that walk around with an overdeveloped sense of
Now
entitlement.
you're just preaching random crap.
I'm dead serious. This is
How about the fact that humans have always gotten bonuses over every other race, and maybe people don't want to play
No, that's
human
not.
all
That's
the time?
that's
humans
not.
had no bonuses.
Humans had no bonuses or penalties of any kind. The other races had usually 1 or 2 bonuses and 1 penalty.
You had something that
I'm just saying they were evening the playing field, so
It
there
was
no
even.
plus or minus
It was
for being
no,
any
no,
race you
no. There
want.
were plus. This had only pluses.
yeah. Well, what they did was they took
But if everyone's
As a-
special, then no one is.
That's the
Oh,
point.
Lord.
actually. Okay.
So you don't want them to get trophies at T-ball. I understand.
No.
From a
that's-
mechanical point of
I
view,
think
all
they
right,
should all get
let's break
trophies.
this down back to, other than a philosophical reason of why they would have done something like that, to a mechanical reason. The having only positive bonuses and without negatives kind of simplified things, because that's what they were going for. They're trying to funnel this all down to make it super simple, in the sense of playing 4th edition, and this is my pet peeve of 4th edition. I don't hate it as much as him, but
Anyone who doesn't hate it as much as me should be buried in a box filled with scorpions.
but
Are we in an internet chat room?
exactly.
I know.
He's just trolling now. But, so I don't hate it as much. I mean, I could play it if I had to. Obviously, I prefer older editions. I prefer, particularly 3rd edition, I think was the gold standard now. Just because of the mechanic. But the difference between 1st and 2nd edition was almost negligible. It's hard to tell that they're even different.
Did they make all the dice rolling and all of that stuff easier? Because that's my
No,
big problem.
well, in
when
1st and
I play
2nd
any of
edition,
those.
slow down.
It's not
All right,
really
in
different.
1st and 2nd edition, the mechanics stayed the same, everything, with minor tweaks here and there. And 3rd edition was a big departure from that with the D20 system, where they based everything off of the D20, and everything was positive modifiers in the sense of you wanted a high armor class, you wanted to roll high on the D20.
3rd edition fixed what was broken about 2nd
Yeah,
edition.
well, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And so that's why I almost consider 3rd kind of the gold standard, because you still had the free form ability of the older editions, and the importance of the Dungeon Master was still there. 4th edition kind of took a lot of that away, where you could almost play 4th edition without a DM. You don't even need one, because everything is so codified. Everything you do is right there, black and white. Every single rule, there's no interpretation, it's just, this is it, which I don't like very much.
Well, it gets rid of all the rule whiners too.
Well, yes.
No.
The rule
Not
Nazis.
really.
Not really.
Not really, but
This edition was made for rules lawyers.
yes. But
I like how we're all not saying the real phrase, right? Yeah. Okay.
so,
Rules lawyer,
is
that's
the
it.
actual
Rules
term.
lawyer is the actual
But
term.
That
Yeah.
is not the term I use.
No.
I know it's not the term most of us use, but that's the commonly
That is the
accepted
advantage
phrase.
of playing on the internet. Something like World of Warcraft. Everybody's bound by the same rules.
Okay, so back to
There's no arguing.
Back to what I was saying was, so 3rd edition I kind of see as like the gold standard as far as the tabletop D&D. Now, obviously, I think system-wise the gold standard is White Wolf. That's the best system I've ever played.
It's so much easier.
But well, see, I'm not really interested in easy all the time. But
It leaves you
but
still
what I'm
with
interested
all that
in,
ability
right?
to
Well,
change things as a DM. And
one of the things about White Wolf that was great was the fact that there's a lot of emphasis on the storyteller and what's going on. He has a lot of control.
Well, where
which
White
is
Wolf
what I like.
succeeds, even though things are homogenous in a similar way in White Wolf, is that there's a lot of there's a lot of individual customization within the system.
Right.
This eliminated all of that. My point is, this is dull, and that's what wrecks it for me.
Yeah.
Everybody's the same.
Now, one of the things with 4th that back to the mechanic thing I was talking about with positive modifiers and no negatives was the desire to try to make everything so simple, so you don't have to worry about two different things. You don't have to say, okay, I'm playing a dwarf, and so I have a +1 to my constitution and a -1 to my dexterity. All you'd have is, okay, I'm a dwarf, I'm going to have a + to my constitution. There's no penalty for being a dwarf. It's only I get a + to my constitution. I'm not slower or anything like that. So, and each race obviously has, okay, like elves have + to dex and whatever. So there was never any penalties. So, but I think it was just to make it simple. Okay, just to have a bonus rather than a bonus and a takeaway. It was one extra thing they said we don't really need, so they got rid of it. Now, one thing that's going on with 4th now is the development of 5th edition. They just started, called D&D Next.
Well, explain why.
Why was because 4th edition is what they found was a lot of the older players. Well, actually, the real why is that they want to make money, and
it's not selling.
right. Well,
It initially,
like it
no, it
do
didn't.
right about it. Therefore,
older
it's time for a new one.
Its initial,
Wizards an email.
its initial sales in the very beginning were pretty solid, and then after about 6 months, it just dropped off. And they're not making any money on
the
it.
stated goal of 5th edition was to bring back and bring in all the older players and stuff like that. So what they want to do is they've kind of gone back to the 3rd edition mechanic in a way, with the the stated design goal is to make everything modular. So they're going to have like modular add-ons. So okay, if you liked this part of 4th edition, you can play that way. That's fine. And you add that
They're gonna let you just take pieces of the other version
whatever you want.
and add it.
You like
Everyone
this
loves
about this
Legos.
game? You can put this in there. Like 4th edition relies very heavily on miniatures.
It's still all kill a monster, get a treasure.
And no, not necessarily.
Well, that kind of depends
Playstyle is
on-
all about playstyle. It's how you want to play. I mean,
That is directly linked to the maturity of your gaming group.
yeah.
I mean, now
So
that I'm
everybody
no,
doesn't have to meet in a bar. And
never.
then-
Well, sometimes we do that as a throwback.
no,
but
a great little dungeon crawl is always fun to do. But
when you're
that's not-
14, you know, you have a very narrow understanding of
Right.
of
but in general,
these games and storytelling in general. But you know, now in my 30s, I enjoy playing the game a lot more. It's way more fun to sit down with my friends and play.
I mean, there's always room for
Yeah.
good old-fashioned dungeon crawl because sometimes it's just fun just to let off steam. You go in there and as a DM, it's fun sometimes just to create one because it you know, a quick pickup game. You go, okay, I could just randomly generate a dungeon, bam, boom, boom, boom. Throw some monsters in there. Okay, go find whatever MacGuffin I want to throw in there, and just do it.
Well,
Or
what I didn't like about the whole when we did the Spelljammer thing is just the amount of time you have to take to figure out the roles and the this and then that. And so one.
Well,
that's
you
just
were
'cause
unfamiliar with the system
yeah,
at the time.
once
I
you're
mean,
familiar with the
that's-
system, I mean, I could sit there and, you know, obviously because I know the system, be like, bam.
and I don't have to.
True
I just
about
ask Keith.
But there were
Right.
still
Well,
four
the
people,
better
and
you
it
know
was just
something,
took
the
up
better
an
you're going to
en-
be at it.
It took an inordinate amount of time to get through these things,
Trust me, it
and
took me a
so
long
it's
time
not
to-
as much fun. There's not as much interaction between
I
characters.
think
There's
maybe
not
we
as
just-
much talking and hanging out with your friends. It's more. All right, you need
Yeah,
to roll
you
these
had-
dice, and then we need to do that, and then you need
That
to
may have
roll
not
for
have been
this.
that may not have been an appropriate first experience for you, Jess.
And actually,
Nobody's
don't like dice
first
rolling.
time really goes off without a hitch, Jesse. I
And
mean,
secondly, I mean, and also the setting. I mean,
He's such a pig. Did everyone catch that?
the
He's a
setting.
pig.
Yeah, I'm ignoring that.
All right.
For instance, also, you're trying to reacquaint yourself with second edition, even if you haven't played it, which is a little more complicated anyway than some of the later editions. And also, you're in a kind of an unfamiliar setting with Spelljammer. It's not your standard fantasy kind of deal.
For the record, what he's talking about is a really unpopular setting for second edition D&D that I really liked.
But if we played a kind of a standard Dragonlance style or Forgotten Realms style, it would have been a lot easier for you.
Yeah,
I mean that's
things
just
were
I'm
more
just saying,
complicated.
compared to White Wolf, where you can go in and have a lot of actual storytelling, story player interaction.
The amount of
everything else-
storytelling and story interaction.
There is a system with no dice at all.
I know it's called WoW.
No, a tabletop game. It's called Everway, and instead
really?
of resolving actions through rolling dice, you draw a tarot card from a tarot deck, and depending on which way the card is oriented, it's either the positive meaning or the negative meaning.
they've
The
tried that
storyteller.
before.
Yeah, Dragonlance tried that. with
They've
the
tried
Talos
that before.
deck.
No, the only true diceless
That's kind of
role-playing
like
game was
flipping a
Amber.
coin.
Amber was the only true diceless role-playing game where it was you had stats, but the outcome was determined by the game master based on your stats and the plan that the players had and how they executed them, how they described it to them. That it focused on storytelling and threw most of the variables out.
Now, trust me, the last time we played Vampire with some of our players, I had to do a lot of telling people what they needed to roll. A lot. Oh no, you need to, if you want to do that, you need to, you need, three dice for your decks and 3 dice for your firearms.
But they're all the same kind of dice.
The point is
Doesn't
There
matter.
are 1,800 kinds of dice.
I think we're getting a little too bogged down as to the merits of one game over another.
Says the guy who spent how long going on about 4th edition?
You get to do your rant. Come on
Right?
now.
I finished my rant. My rant's over.
All right, well, I was
Now
doing
somebody
my
else
rant
gets to
about
rant.
dice.
And I was just talking about the 5th edition playtest because we were actually doing that a few weeks ago because I printed up the playtest and we ran a quick little adventure and so far anyone who's interested in that it's pretty good. I like it.
It's definitely gone back to the original style of playing
Yeah,
with fancy and magic.
Yeah,
A fighter's job is pretty much I hit
Smash.
it with my sword,
smash it.
which I like.
Magic missile. Pew.
Yep. Well, they kept the at-will powers, which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
I did like that, yeah.
As long as it's for people with magic power.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's exactly. Now,
Next topic.
well, no, I was gonna get into kind of back to White Wolf a little bit with the vampire and the different games that they came out with.
Werewolf.
Yeah, vampire, werewolf, mage. Because one thing I liked about
Mage is cool.
yeah, well,
They were fun.
Well, relative.
Without, well, it depends. I think where, or maybe what Keith is getting at is that White Wolf took this idea of different character classes within one system and creating, vampire, werewolf, mage, that where each type of character had its own game within a system, or that were interlinked but didn't necessarily have to share an adventure with each other. You could do a party of mages or a party of werewolves. Right. I mean, vampires were extremely diverse.
It was easy enough to incorporate
right.
Different things from different games.
Now, in terms of how that evolved, was these games and these developers started influencing each other, I think, and that's what led to the development of 3rd edition. Something that Wizards said, well, these are the complaints that everybody had. That's why everyone went to White Wolf to begin with. And you can argue the merits of other, some of the humor games like Paranoia and Tales from the Floating Vagabond that deliberately, I think, created systems that that parodied those frustrations we had with the other systems.
Oh,
something like anything published by Palladium.
Well,
or Steve Jackson.
Doesn't Star Wars and all of the I Spy one, the spy ones, and
well, Star Wars.
All these other, don't they all use this system now?
No, none of them use that system. Only Storyteller uses that system.
Yeah, the original Star Wars
now
D6s,
uses. Star Wars now is.
And the new Star Wars uses 3.5 rules. So
and in fact, the Star Wars system that you're thinking of, the one that you played, predates White Wolf.
Yeah, that was the D6 system by Steve Jackson.
Came out in '87 on the 10-year anniversary of Star Wars.
That uses only 6-sided dice.
But it was all the same kind of dice.
Yeah.
Which actually, that system was inferior because what that wanted you to do was add the pips. When you made a roll, you had to do some quick math, adding all your 4s, 5s, 6s, and 1s, and to come up with your target number. Whereas White Wolf came up with the brilliant idea.
Class.
Let me backtrack. They didn't really come up with that. The first system to do that was Shadowrun, though they did it with D6s,
right?
Where each individual number had each individual die had a target to beat. But and you can see, and especially in the '90s, there's a corresponding evolution of video games as well, and especially over the last decade, where they started sort of dumping out what people didn't like, and then other ways adding more math for the computer to do to figure out these things for you. I think that the number crunching that some people do for World of Warcraft is really impressive.
I don't do any of it, and I play just fine.
Yeah, I don't do any of that stuff.
I don't do any of it either.
Yeah,
no, but you speak of single player RPGs. I mean, there's a lot going on that the player never sees. But what single player RPGs and Joe, I think you're with me on this, creates a really immersive experience.
Yes.
You feel like you're in the story, like you're in the movie. I mean, MMOs, there's no immersion. Your friends are there, calling you a
only you.
Or just anything. I mean, just the.
But it's the idea you can play with your friends.
The texticons in guild chat, that sort of thing. That creates a barrier to actually pushing yourself into the story. I don't know anybody.
Which is why SWAtter. I like SWAtter a lot.
Yeah, I don't like
if
anybody.
If you want to do that, you can join a role-playing server. Or
no, I understand. But nobody does. I'm making the argument that that layer doesn't exist in MMOs, but it does exist in single-player RPGs. I'm arguing the merit of that.
Well, Diablo, you could totally be like that and just play in your own little world the whole time if you wanted.
Diablo's not an MMO, is it?
Yeah, it is.
It can be. Okay,
That's stupid.
Because you can invite people into your world and all do stuff together.
Right.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Thank you.
Favorites.
All right, so your favorites. Let's move on. What is your absolute favorite tabletop and video, Keith?
Well, my favorite tabletop is going to have to be Vampire. I mean, because as much as my early gaming was shaped by D&D, it was really Vampire that kind of captured my imagination. But then it could also have been an age thing too. I mean, I was when Vampire came out, I was 18, 19 years old, so starting to get really into that sort of thing. So, or just White Wolf in general, really, because I was also a big fan of Mage the Ascension, and I liked Wraith the Oblivion. Other than it was hard to do combined groups because really they could only deal with themselves without any real difficulty.
Wraith was more confusing, but it was still really cool. But sorry.
As far as something that I didn't like, you kind of hit on it. I can't remember the name of the game though. You're gonna have to help me out. It was extremely complicated.
Oh,
Rifts. Thank you. That was like.
Oh, Rift online?
No.
This is the original Rifts. Unconnected.
Tabletop game.
The Rift
it was
tabletop
the most complicated. You think D&D with all its
Yes,
dice is
it's
complicated?
No.
No, the most complicated thing you ever made me play was that tabletop in your basement, WD-40, whatever, where you had to measure moving 40 different guys.
Oh no, that's tactical
one
games.
inch.
That's tactical games. That's something else.
That's something
totally different.
I'm
That'll be a whole
painting
other
his
episode.
pants blue.
Go.
Hey, I'm pretty good at painting those.
You are. At least they have pants.
It still reminds me. Every
Keith is
time.
afraid of pants, but that's for another discussion.
40-year-old virgin reminds me every time of that scene. Now I'm painting your red pants blue. Always reminds me of you.
Yeah, repainting a model, though, you should really strip it first. You shouldn't just paint over the existing.
I'm just saying that was the
really
most
frustrated
complicated
me.
game that you've ever made
But that's
me play.
not really. That's. I mean, it's a similar demographic, but it's not really the same thing as an RPG. So.
How is it not the same thing? You
But
have the same people in your
we're moving
basement,
on.
and then you're
Your
using
favorite-
pieces instead of.
Your absolute favorite, Jess. The one game you really
Vampire.
love, Vampire.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love Vampire. It's awesome.
All right.
And WoW.
Then wow. Yeah. Something that you really hate.
Something that I really
What do you
hate.
really hate?
I didn't like the Spelljammer thing, I have to admit. I'm not really a big fan of D&D in general because I think it's too confusing, and I think
You
that
should have played 4th edition.
and I just don't find it have as much affinity with that kind of thing. Like if Vampire set up a game like WoW, I'd probably like it better than WoW.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's about
They're-
freaking
they're-
time.
There's a classic
That's
World of
coming.
Darkness vampire MMO on the way.
Okay, but if they don't make it as all-encompassing as you would say girl-friendly, or for me, I don't even say girl-friendly.
It will
I
be
say
general.
it's the
No, it
fact
has a
that
broader
they've
appeal.
dumbed down the online games enough that
will be
people like
eventually.
me who are terrible at playing them can play them
I don't
and
think
still
you're as
enjoy
bad
them.
as you say you are.
Well, I'm not that great. I didn't grow up. I didn't play the Sega and the video this and
Didn't
the
you
video
20
that.
minutes ago have a rant about how girls are just as good at video games as boys are?
Not me. Not me personally.
Joe.
Me personally, I'm
What's
not.
up?
Weigh in.
I forgot what the question was.
It was your favorite.
What's your favorite?
My favorites.
Real quick.
I'm gonna have to go D&D 3.5 as my favorite tabletop game. I mean, I admit I don't hate 4th nearly as much as you do. I mean, 4th got me back into D&D. 4th is why I know all of you.
Yep.
So, and I enjoy playing 4th, but 3.5 was really something different.
Second World War is why we have silly putty. It doesn't justify the Second World War.
Random statistic out of your ass.
What do you hate?
What do I hate?
What do you
See,
hate?
like I said before, I
don't
don't.
hate.
If I end up disliking something in the first
Yeah,
hour,
you just
2
don't
hours,
play it.
I'm just not going to do it. So,
But there wasn't, because I know some of those Zelda sequels. I'm not a huge Zelda guy, but
see,
anyway.
there
Third
were-
edition good, 4th edition bad. Thank you for joining me tonight, guys. I want to thank Jamie Horton, hearing who's in the booth,
Woo!
for helping us out tonight. Thanks
sorry,
for
Jamie
watching.
who?
Good night, everybody.